Hey everybody, this is Casey Cease with Lucid Books. I'm here with my friend Don Meinberg, one of our authors. And Don, we're really excited to have you here. I was telling you before we started recording this video that I have a 12-year-old daughter, and so thought she was so cool being able to go through the cover concepts that you're working on and everything else. But why don't you go ahead and tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Well, most of my life, at the beginning of my life, I was a businessman. I was in business for about 30 years. I had my own business for many, many years. So God didn't call me into the ministries till later on in my life. I started doing Bible studies back in about 2003, 2004. And then when the 2008 recession hit, my business took a dive, unfortunately, and God called me into the ministry. And I've been a pastor at a church a small church here in Paris for about almost 8 years. And how I got involved with children is though when I had my businesses, I did youth group for many, many years. I think I did about 12 years with a youth group. And that's what got me started thinking about writing these books.
That's awesome. So you said Paris. Paris what?
Paris, California.
Okay.
Yeah,
the second best Paris in the world, right?
I was going to say, everybody says, wow, you're in France? I said, I wish. No, it's Paris, California.
Oh, it's good. It's good. So what compelled you? You said, to write the books. You said working with students. What about working with students made you feel the need to write the books you're writing? And tell us a little bit about what you're writing on.
Okay. I started teaching middle school and high school kids back in the early 90s. Okay. I was at a church out here in the Inland Empire, and I was in youth ministry for about 12 years. Then all of a sudden I moved a little bit west out to a city called Riverside, California, and I was involved in a church called Pathway. And at that church, I volunteered to do discipleship work with a bunch of 5th and 6th graders. And we would meet every Sunday after church. And when we were meeting, I realized that the kids, we were doing discipleship work, and they kept asking me questions about things that they were going through, asking me questions about, some struggles they're having with their parents. And I kept saying, well, you know what? I don't have all those answers, so let me find a book for you. Let me find a book that we can kind of study together and learn this together, how to help you out during this time. Well, Casey, I couldn't find any books. I found a lot of self-help books. I could not find one book that actually answered the questions of these kids going through these years from God's perspective. Wow. So I thought, wow, that's crazy. So I said, you know what? I think I'll start writing my own book. And I started thinking about it. I didn't know what to start, didn't know what to do, but I knew what my kids went through. Because at that time, I started writing the book back in 2003. My kids were just getting out of the puberty ages, the middle school ages. And I know what struggles they went through. So I used my kids as a basis, plus those kids from that discipleship group, and that's how I came up with some of the topics that started the book.
Man, that's awesome. So as you've gone through this, what are you hoping that these students, when they read it, will experience? What are you hoping they experience as they read your book?
Well, when I was talking to all these kids, the biggest problem that they had was mostly the transition from elementary school to middle school, and then that transition from middle school to high school. And first time they were struggling with things like loneliness. And, in elementary school, everybody plays together.
Right.
In middle school and high school, there's cliques, and there's kids that hang out with each other, and the big kids don't want the little kids. So they start feeling this loneliness for the first time. And then you get the peer pressure. Then you get the hormones kicking in, so you start getting some attitudes about your family, even about your church. And then you start looking at some of the other problems in today's world, like drugs, alcohol, and then all these things hit these kids at this one time. And it's like, wow, where do I turn? Who do I talk to? Can't talk to mom and dad. You know how kids are when they get older, right. Mom and dad, kind of distant. So they're turning to the things like, like internet, or they turn things to like celebrity type magazines or their friends, and they're not getting any good guidance. So what I would want these kids to get from this is basically an instructional manual from God's word that deals with real issues that those kids are literally experiencing right now in their schools, and figure out what Bible verses actually relate to that, and then being able to utilize that in their own lives.
Man, that's awesome. So what kind of feedback have you received so far from your books?
Well, it's funny. I started with Lucid late. I thought I was going to be smart and try to see if I could self-publish. That was a mistake. It really was. But I was able to sell a number of set of books to a lot of friends I knew, a lot of pastors, youth pastors. And I'll tell you, it's been really awesome. I'm telling you, the teachers love it.
Yeah.
Because the reason why the teachers love it so much is because it's not your normal book.
Right.
It's not a book that you read cover to cover. It's a topical book. It's a 365-day devotional with 365 different topics. So you can do this in so many ways. You can do it by topic, you can do it by day, or you can basically do it on an issue that you're literally going through at that present time. Just go to the glossary, find the issue, and read it. And what the teachers loved about the book, Casey, is the fact that each and every day there's an area for the kids to be able to journal. So if the story doesn't fit exactly what they're going through, they can actually write their own story. They can write their own journal. They can figure out their own issues, what they're going on, and how they can use God's word for their own particular issues. So that's what the kids love. It's like, wow, they can't maybe relate to totally the story, but they can utilize the words of God to create their own story and then be able to put it down on their own journal.
That's great, man. So what advice, and I get, man, I tell you, I started this publishing company in 2006, and I'm asked all the time, people want to pick my brain about writing a book, but what's one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author?
Oh, wow. I would say, for me personally, Casey, don't quit.
Yeah.
I know you can imagine this. Trying to come up with 365 topics that middle school and young teenagers go through was a challenge. It really was. I mean, you get your top 100, it's kind of simple. When you're getting to that number 200 to 250, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm out of ideas. I must have talked to 1,000 kids during those years trying to come up with other ideas. But the key is don't quit. It's going to get frustrating. You're going to write a certain period, then you're going to get a little, you might get a blank. You're not sure what to write about. Don't stop, because I'm telling you, if God's in the center of that book, he's going to give you the ideas. He's going to give you the inspiration to keep on going. So the first thing was don't quit. And then the second thing is only write on something you're passionate about. Casey, I love kids. I have my own church. It's a small church, about 100 people. And I'm telling you, I'd say 40% of our church is kids.
Yeah.
And I just love kids. I relate to kids. I understand kids, maybe because of my youth group. I'm passionate about kids, especially when you read and watching the news how kids, even as young as middle school, are getting involved in gangs, getting involved in drugs, even taking weapons to schools. You see all this and say, wow, man, if these kids had this foundation of God, it'd be quite a bit different. So if you realize you don't ever quit and you're passionate about your subject, you're going to write a great book.
That's awesome. So tell me this, what is the title of your book that you're coming out with?
Okay, the book, the fourth series book is called Reaching New Heights.
Okay.
God's Answers to Young Teens' Questions.
So
that's the book. Those are the four, and basically it's set up in quarters: January through March, and then April through June, July through September, and October, December. Those are the 4 books for the 365 days.
And so why would you tell a student they should take time to read it?
I think because there is not a subject in there they could not relate to.
Yeah.
Now, there's a number of subjects that they may have never experienced. There's some of them that don't have those issues that I describe in the book. But I guarantee you, Casey, there's going to be a number of them that either they've experienced, their friends have experienced, their siblings are experiencing, or anybody that they can use as a resource to help not only themselves, but help other people. That's one of the things when I talk to kids who's gone through the books, they said, well, you know what? Some of this stuff doesn't apply to me. Oh, but my best friend has going through this, or my friend's going through this. And it's a resource that really helps a wide array of kids. And I'm talking about kids in 6th grade and as high as kids in 9th and 10th grade.
Man, that's fantastic. So are you planning on writing any other books?
It's funny. When I first met with Lucid, I think it was Megan asked me that same question. I said, you know what? Yeah, I love writing books. I've got a second book that I'm writing right now. It's called Soaring to Greatness.
Oh,
and
wow.
what it is, taking the same age group, pre-teens to young teens, and it's a discipleship book based on the teachings that I did when I was dealing with kids out here in the church in Riverside. So I'm writing a very simple but very powerful discipleship book for kids of that age group and how they can utilize it in their own church, how they can serve, how they can help themselves in schools and all that.
That's awesome, man. So let me ask you this. What was your favorite thing about working with Lucid Books?
Oh, you've got a very professional staff. I think that was the number one thing. When you deal with publishers, one of the things I was concerned about is, and please don't, this does not apply to Lucid, but they take your money and then they forget about you, right, type of thing. Yeah. They say, hey, okay, I got your money. Okay, give me 6 months. I may look at your book, maybe make some changes. Lucid has been a very positive experience for me because the staff is professional. Every single person I've dealt with has been professional. they're also very patient with first-time authors. I mean, I'm a first-time author. I knew nothing. I knew nothing about what I was doing. And they walked me step by step and patiently walked through every step. They didn't rush it. They made sure I understood. They were very timely in giving me schedules on when things had to be done. It was that professionalism that I really liked. I like dealing with people that are not only committed to helping me with my book, but move it along in a pace that can get this thing going quickly. And Lucid Books was that and much more.
I appreciate the feedback. We're always looking to improve and serve our authors well. So I want to end on this. It's somewhat fun, and since you're in student ministry, you'll enjoy this. But what would be one word that best describes you, and why would you say it?
And that was the one question I wasn't going to mark. But if I say one word that describes me, probably my adult career, I would say is be determined. When I started my businesses, they said that I could never get a business started in aerospace, what I wanted to do. And I was determined to do it, and I was blessed, and God blessed me, and I had a very successful business. When I started writing the book, people laughed at me, said, "You're never going to be able to finish that book. It's going to be too time-consuming. It's going to be way too cumbersome." And I was determined to finish the book. And then when God called me to ministry, he called me to ministry right after the recession of 2008. He asked me to go to a city here in Paris, California, that was really struggling through that recession. And God told me to go start a church. Well, everybody told me, don't do that. It's the wrong place. You'll never make it. And God's blessed me there. So I would think in my life, I've been blessed by the Lord, but I would say determined and committed to when I start something, I need to finish it. I need to finish it well.
I would agree with those words, Don. So, Don, thanks so much for taking some time to share briefly about yourself, your life, and your books. Let people know where they can find you. Where can they find you?
Well, in many places. On Facebook, you just need to go to Don Meinberg Author, and then go ahead and that's my Facebook page. Or you can find me on the website, www.reachingnewheightsbooks.com. And I just started a Instagram, and the Instagram, it's known as Don Meinberg, and we're just starting to get that thing started. So we'll be revving that up here right now.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Casey, thank you for the time. Appreciate it.